Okay, so for the record, we're now recording the meeting. The recordation did miss the last minute or so where I simply welcomed everyone to the meeting, called the meeting to order, and confirmed that there is no public comment. We're now ready to move into approving the minutes from our last meeting in August. Those minutes were circulated by Shelley. Are there any comments, revisions, or amendments needed to those minutes as circulated?
I move to accept the minutes as circulated.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. Okay. To accommodate our staff personnel who are with us today, we're going to move over old business and new business on the agenda. We will come back to those. And we're going to start with project updates. So who wants to go first? Scott?
So the only thing I really have is the Heritage Park that's almost completed. They're real close to completing that outfall. Other than that, I don't have anything going on right now other than a sanitary side, but that's not really, that's North 6th and Buttonwood. That's basically where almost all my crew has been since August 8th. Because that's a 20-foot deep sanitary main. It's 12 inches and it's just been a nightmare. Every time we move forward, we take 2 steps back.
Ugh. So could you say a little more about the Heritage Park? What was done?
That was the outfall. So they replaced, I believe, 3 or 4 sections of pipe, and basically they've got almost all the concrete done. They're just regrading right now to finish and complete and move out.
This is stormwater going into the school hall.
Yes,
So
that was the outfall that blew out a few years ago. I think in 2015.
So is it just replaced in kind, or is it larger or smaller, or any change in size?
It's the same. It's larger, but different material. It was corrugated metal, and now it's like a plastic and concrete.
Okay.
It's 96-inch original. Now it's I think 109.
It's 109 now. So it was 96 before.
Does it have any stormwater calming features like
Yes.
rock filters or things like that?
Yes, there's a. I know at the end of it, there's a rock filter at the end of the outfall. They also put we're at their connection point. They're still working on some stuff that kind of slows it down, like almost like a vault of some sort.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Break the old
Yeah,
pipe from the new pipe.
great.
So, and that's got a constant flow because that's coming from Egelman's Park.
Okay.
It comes from Egelman's.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Rose Valley Street.
Yeah, Shelley loves that one because that's the one she's always worried about if it ever causes problems right by her house. And it's actually right by, when we were at Pandora, that's actually the stream where it goes underground right at Pandora where we were having meetings.
So that's that stream. That's from Egelman's, and then it goes underground, and that's the outfall. That's the only water that feeds it. This has nothing to do with your report. That's what feeds that outfall.
Well, it's all the stormwater from East Reading as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So every catch basin that from the East Reading side flows into that line as well. And then it goes all the way down to 6th and Canal. And that's why it needs to be so big. It's just there's a lot of flow, especially in a major storm event.
Or during snowmelt.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to take people's time, and I'm going to guess nobody remembers this, but several years ago, Marlon Miller, it could be 2 decades, I don't know, funded as part of a Harvard Graduate School of Design project. 6 students came here to do projects in Reading, and one of them proposed a stream that would run open at different parts down Penn Street and people received it with such skepticism, but basically connecting the mountain to the river, you know, that it would be, we would have a, you know, a kinetic flowing waterwork right down Penn Street. It was a serious design. I mean, this is graduate students. This wasn't just some kind of stupid project that people were doing. Another one proposed urban farms out at the where the outer station was, and that whole triangle of land behind where the well, where the Public Works building is now. That was two that I recall.
Wow.
Um,
I would love the canal through the, down, basically a canal through an enclosed stream through down Penn Street. That's awesome.
yeah, it was a really
Yeah.
good idea.
We did, I mean, not a lot, but cities are doing that to as much to keep people aware of storm, you know, try to get people to say, where does your raindrop go?
Yeah,
Where it lands, where does it go? And if you make it visible so that you have the outfall going someplace, and we did that at Bucknell, where they put in a new building, and Bucknell doesn't do a real good job generally of stormwater management. They had 42 outfalls in a quarter mile of impaired stream, and that stream peaked when it rained. It peaked off campus first before the water came down from the headwaters, because they had rushed all the water off campus. No alumni was ever going to get its toe wet on campus. And anyway, but what they did do with the new building was channel the roof water into a rock-filled pool, put that into a sort of a canal that went down the middle of a wall. So we made a wall that went a typical brick wall, but the inside it was a channel for that water. And then it went into a series of 3 rain gardens going down the hill. But it just makes such a difference. Nobody knows where their water goes, and the visibility of it is important. So I love that idea of, you know, it would be nice if we could at least, you know, where we've got so many streams. Bethany was explaining how we've got so many streams in Reading that, as was the fashion and the modern thing to do at the time, the stream gets near habitation and you put it in a pipe and channel it under and it disappears. Be really nice if we could pick one that would be easy to daylight, or at least partially daylight, and, you know, make it visible to people.
well, yeah, I don't want to prolong the discussion, but
Yeah.
for me, it was the discovery at Pandora that there is that section that goes through the park that,
Yeah.
you know, it's like you're kind of a stream. There's a little bit of a waterfall. You know, maybe that's something
Maybe that's
to
a-
highlight.
Yeah, a place to put some signage and,
Yeah, we're highlighting green infrastructure. Well, this is
yeah.
it is. Hey, Scott, is there some user-friendly map or diagram of the stormwater system in the city?
We have a GIS system, but it's not really public knowledge.
Yeah,
We only have so many licenses for ourselves, and we don't even have enough licenses for the people using it currently. So that's something we're actually working with Cedarville Engineering to move forward with it. I know there was a push with the Berks County Steering Committee, the MS4 Steering Committee, that they were trying to get everybody on the same page and everybody to have one centralized one, I believe it was them. I know we were trying to work with Rawa to get both of our GISs merged together. But I mean, there's a lot. But the problem is a lot of it's incorrect information as well. So there's a lot of stormwater. I think we have 150, I believe it's about 150 items that need to be changed or adjusted on the GIS system. We actually contracted Cedarville to update that. And they're actually in the process now of fixing it.
well, maybe as a future agenda item, picking up on what Kathy said, it would be to turn that into something that could go on the website as a way, or just even a flyer to show people that literally beneath their feet. Stormwater is running. Because in our communications committee conversations about the climate action plan, we've talked about raising people's understanding of the water system. A lot of folks in the city see the water system and probably public work, don't see it as their friend and don't understand, how much their daily life depends on that functioning and working. And we didn't really talk about storm sewer, but I think that's something we should think about as a way of, just raising people's understanding. First of all, here's what your municipal government actually does.
Mhm.
You don't realize it because your basement isn't flooded every day. But so yeah, if that's something we could come back to at some point, and maybe think about how that could be massaged into something that's a little bit more diagrammatic rather than a technical map.
Yeah.
I do have an idea about that for an upcoming event. The trick or treat on Penn will be Friday. I'm pulling up my calendar real quick. So last Friday in October, the 28th.
Mhm.
I would actually like to have, my division will be down there passing out candy, but I think it'd be kind of cool to do like the scary thing of what if Public Works wasn't here? What would Reading look like?
That's
Yeah,
really
it's not a parade. It's just going to be kind of a trunk or treat kind of situation. So there will be opportunities to have discussions with families as we pass out stickers and candy.
all right.
It's just a thought that we could.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I haven't wrapped my head around how to do that yet, but I think it would be fun to do a, kind of, maybe dress up one of our stake bodies with, floods and cholera and kind of like the Oregon Trail of.
Well,
Gremlins, yes.
I just got back a half hour ago from spending a couple of days with my daughter, son-in-law, and grandkids. The older one is he's 2 years, 9 months, and he is, as we approach Halloween, he's seeing stuff on TV, and he's really he's getting into that attraction repulsion of spooky and scary, and I think that goes on for a long time with kids. So that's an interesting idea, Bethany. If there's a way to do it so that they don't end up, screaming, but as an understanding of the world around has both threats and salvation, let's say. I don't know. That's an interesting idea. And the parents would learn something too.
Yeah. It's certainly a concept. And in part of my overall mission of to get people to understand that what Public Works does and how we are vitally important to the community, especially if you want a healthy and peaceable one.
So Bethany, other than the stormwater update we just got from Scott, are there any other project updates you were looking to cover? I mean, I can think of Bernhardt's.
Yeah, I don't have an update on Bernhardt for you, other than I have been doing water testing and been doing the inventorying the plants. Of course, we have purple loosestrife, and we also have knotweed on the site. I was able to pull out all of the knotweed that I found in the lake bed areas this summer. Loosestrife, I was able to manage about 3 acres of it by pulling it out. The native plants are looking really good. So from the historic seed bed, a lot of jewel weeds, a lot of smart weeds, pinkweed, So plants we really do want to see. We also, the water chemistry is testing fantastic. The pH is hanging out right between 7.9 and 8.2 at various stages of the stream and the lake. Nitrogen and phosphates, or nitrates and nitrate, and phosphates are all well below the recommended levels. Dissolved oxygen has been in the 8 to 10 milligrams per liter stage. So it's, and the
Really?
fish up there is fantastic. Yeah, it is not eutrophic at all.
Wow.
We didn't have any funky algae blooms. I like to think it's because we're too broke to use fertilizers, but we also don't have it. We don't have agriculture in the area, and it starts. That stream starts up on Mount Penn in the protected forest preserve. That makes all the difference in stream quality around here. So far so good. We do have baby trees coming from Keystone Million Trees in October that Master Watershed Stewards and student Reading Climate Corps and students from Alvernia and Albright ecology classes will be helping plant. We're doing it strictly as a soil stabilization at this point, while we're waiting for the decision makers to make their decisions and get engineering going and figure out what we're actually going to do. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But as far as like any actual decisions being made, I haven't heard anything. I know council wants to do a
What about the meeting, public meeting?
but I haven't received a date or anything for it yet.
Okay.
You guys will be the third to know. Once I know, you guys will know.
Because
I'm sure Shelley
Marsha,
will have us all together on it.
yeah, Marsha repeated that at our last meeting that they wanted to have it at the Shabbat Community Center, which is right.
We have our data pretty much ready to go.
Okay.
So I think you guys have know my feelings on it.
Right.
So that's Bernhardt. Ecologically, it's looking much better than I was expecting. So I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, I just did sort of a drive-by and I didn't really get out and look at.
It is
Took us to early.
it is very, very wet. I'm continuing to ask everybody, please stay out of the lake bed. I am the only one who is allowed to get stuck in the mud. I've had to talk to our birders about it.
Treacherous, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really easy to get stuck. We still don't know the depth of the lake. Scott and I have been trying to figure out to get in to do some testing, but our schedules have not coincided for that. So hopefully we can do that soon.
Have you had any feedback from EPA at all in the last couple of weeks?
The EPA is pretty much holding their stance of 80 contact days for an adolescent. Everything is fine. I did reach out to them concerning moving soil and tree planting. They recommended that in the hottest areas that we do cover with a mulch and try to keep any moving of sediments and soils to a minimum. The lead is elemental and it does not appear to be bioavailable right now. So I think their recommendation is to hold in place. That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit surprised because I know that EPA is coming, the Superfund program is coming back out to 2 neighboring sites that are
Yep.
quite large.
Yeah.
to do some additional sampling with the hope that those two sites might be added to what's called the National Priorities List, which would free up additional Superfund monies for work. I'm
Correct.
actually very surprised that they're not at least going back out to Bernhardt's for some follow-up sampling, because that seems to be the next step on
Yeah,
their.
they did do the grab samples
Oh, okay.
in April.
All right.
We really haven't seen any changes.
Okay.
The one island area is still the quote unquote hot area. The other areas that are testing positive are generally below 400 ppm.
Okay.
Not great, but not terrible. I am not super comfortable with the assumption of 80 contact days. But until decisions get made, right now it's just kind of keep it stable. My concern is that if the pH of what would become the wetland area would drop, then we could potentially have an issue. Because then it could be, lead will not dissolve in water. It's pH dependent, so the pH needs to be below 6, which can happen in a wetland. Sometimes the water can become more acidic, but at this point, it's not. But that's kind of what we're getting from the EPA right now. They haven't been as helpful as I would like them to be, especially on the technical assistance aspects.
Yeah, you know what? I've been dealing with Joan Johnson, who's one of their in-house lawyers at Region 3, and with Joe Vitilla, who's actually the technical guy with EPA, who's in charge of the local work here. I actually owe them a call about these other two sites, so I'll try to get an update from Joe specifically about Bernhardt's and where things stand, and then I'll circle back with the group here. I'll send an email out to everyone letting them know what.
Thank you. I'd appreciate it. I mean, best case scenario, they throw $500 million at us to let us make it awesome, whatever. But I would really like a more comprehensive technical assistance with it.
Yeah.
Well, obviously the trust is broke, and the only reason why any work is being contemplated is because of all of the federal funding that's been thrown at EPA recently. The Superfund
Exactly.
program is now flush with cash.
Mhm.
So they're now looking for opportunities, and this is a perfect one. So
Yeah.
I'll talk to Joe, see where he's at.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other project updates that we need to talk about before we double back to old business and then new business?
I don't think so.
I don't know if there's anybody else.
Yeah,
Scott,
Bill Murray had said that he was coming, and Steve Harity ended up canceling. So I
Okay,
think we're okay to move on.
all right, good. So Scott, if you need to bow out at any time, you may. Thank you for joining us today and providing us with an update from your perspective. Okay, back to old business. I guess the first bullet item there is rain garden installations. Kathy, do you have an update?
I do not. Scott, do you have any news on any rain gardens that,
I haven't heard anything new
okay,
for any of the rain gardens. I haven't been able to get in touch with Dave Onspach either. He's the one that's basically all that stuff.
The update that I have on the rain gardens is we are including them in the engineering projects for next year. There is some FEMA money available for green stormwater infrastructure. So that's kind of where we're at this point with them.
Okay. And Kathy, while you have the floor, looks like you have the next item on the list.
okay.
You have many of these items, actually. Signage, mapping proposal, and funding.
Yeah, I don't have, I don't have anything on that. I know we got, Bethany has been trying to bird dog that and start over with Philadelphia Water Department. I don't know, have you had any further?
I've gotten close, and then the new person left, and so I'm waiting for the new person to start.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I'm just waiting for the actual artwork in a editable format from them, and then we can move on from there. I am setting aside money in my budget for next year, so that way when we are ready to go, we can go.
Okay. I guess I would just simply add that in our discussions in the communicate, I think we've discussed it here too, but in the communications committee, it was emphasized that we really need, we need signage, and we need the signage to be substantial, and we need it to have like a QR code on it so people can go to the website and find more. We are putting together language for the website that I was going to have Ann report on that, but that Ann Sellers is working on, and Desi also was working on. And I'm happy to do some of that if that becomes, if that's gotten bogged down and they just can't get to it. But what we were going to have is an accurate but approachable and understandable in common English definition of the key green infrastructure types of installations that they're going to be seeing around the city. So an explanation of what's a rain garden, what's a swale, what's a green roof, something about porous pavement. So we do want that's on the table, and we need to move forward with that. So Bethany, if you
Desi actually has come up with some initial copy, and I think we are waiting for her to communicate with Ann to sort of check that out. I think she took a crack at it.
Right, that's what I thought. Yeah.
And kind of trying to be user friendly. We thought it would be good to have a layperson put the copy together so that
yes,
it's comprehensible to people. But I don't know if you were clear about it, Kathy. That would go on the map on the website if somebody went to the map and clicked on it. That's
why we can just, and that's the reason I raised it. We'd have it on the sign, would take us to that. On the sign, the QR would take us to that information about on the website about green infrastructure and the definitions and the map that will have them on it. So that we tie those things. We don't want to, because we didn't have those. We didn't have the map, and we wouldn't have had definitions when we were originally looking at the sign and how to organize it. We were just worried about getting a logo on it. But now we want to make sure we connect it with what's happening on the website and information that's available there, the map and the definitions when we get them. So that's all I wanted to sort of. Everybody that's working towards getting this done, that's a different, a happy opportunity we have now to connect things and make more things available, not just a sign at the site.
No, appreciate everybody's hard work. I know these projects take on a life of their own. They seem to be never ending, but we are making some progress. So that's great. On our invasive plants, noxious weeds education, I know we had that one walkthrough earlier this spring, and although that was not well attended, I think it was beneficial for all who were there. I can tell you I have been hard at work. Most of my Japanese barberry is gone. Most of my Japanese slit grass is gone. It's amazing when you look at my property and my neighbor's property. I'm the only one that does not have garlic mustard. It's just all over the place right now. I look at, and actually I approached one of my neighbors over the weekend and I said, would you mind if I come over? Because he's upwind from me. And before these flowers go to seed, I really want to get these things out of there. Because I've been I've been working hard, especially with the garlic mustard the last couple of years. And as soon as I see them, and they have a very shallow root system, they pull out easily. So I've got that well under control at my property, but there's a lot of education that needs to happen throughout our community. And I know I'm doing my bit. I know you're doing your bit as well, Kathy. Hopefully we'll continue moving forward with some educational opportunities, in the next couple months and years here.
Yeah, Bethany and I were planning to pick this up in the spring and plan some walks when things start to come, or maybe May-ish, because so that there's enough up that you can really see what's going on and see the different plants that are coming up, at least at that time, and do them through the summer because different things appear.
Right.
David, I do want to remind your neighbor that garlic mustard makes wonderful pesto. It's a great substitute for basil.
Okay.
I do have a group of kids that we've been working on with cleanups from juvenile probation, and they are actually interested in learning how to do some invasive plant removal this fall. So I was thinking we would actually take them up off of Oak Lane to deal with some of the barberry up there.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
I'll let you know when we pick our day to go if anybody wants to join us. Our goal with them is to help them become helpers.
Yeah.
Specifically, so any other adults that would be interested in helping out with that would be welcome.
The other piece I haven't done much on, but partly because I hadn't to investigate. So we wanted to put signage up. The city was willing to put signage up. Right about when I was going to pull the trigger on that, signs appeared. Now, these were just temporary laminated, handmade signs. I think it might be the bike group.
I think so too.
I just think so because it happened about the same time that they painted some of the hazardous rocks in the trail. But I haven't been able to get a hold of them to find out because I don't want to thank them and know what they're doing, then say we're going to put some permanent ones on. Thanks for helping, but I didn't want to interfere with anything they were doing. So I wanted to find out, but we certainly ought to be able to do that over the fall and winter here and have the signs out. The critical thing is to have signs out before spring cleanup so that people have absolutely no excuse to not know that it's illegal for them to dump their yard waste in the forest preserve. So that's my goal to
Or anywhere.
yeah, or anywhere, but certainly it's not helpful in parks and forests. They may think it's organic and it's just going to compost, but as we've talked about, that's
how we got our barberry problem.
yeah, that's how we got our barberry problem and Pachysandra and some places and yeah.
And the other potential opportunity up on the preserve. So I was umpiring a baseball game last weekend up at Rotary Park, and the amount of invasives at Rotary, it's just
I bet
it's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. I mean, Chris Robinson and his crew do a great job with that facility. But I want to approach them about some of the invasives that are going on up there. And maybe there's some opportunities for volunteer time next spring, summer, and fall for kids and families who are up there using the facility to actually help with clearing out some of the invasives up at Rotary Park.
Yeah.
David, could you put me in contact with Chris? I don't know, Chris. If you could put us in contact, we can start planning that out now.
Yeah, I will do that. So he's the head of Reading American Little League. His dad was head of RAL for 35 years. And with his father stepping back, Chris has now stepped up to the plate. Very engaged with what's going on up there. And I'm sure he'd be more than willing to assist us, but I will forward contact information. I'll send something to Chris, copy you on it so that you all have contact information for one another.
And the other piece on this that wanted to follow up on when David was, you're going to try and find somebody in the Hessian camp area. And so that we could do an invasives walk down Hessian camp and then into Pandora. And I don't know.
Yeah, and the guy that I was thinking of, so the now retired pastor at Trinity Lutheran Church, 6 Washington, downtown Reading. He lives on Eckert, near the Central Catholic, but I know he's been there for a long time. He's very actively involved with their community group. I should reach out to him to see if he'd be willing to be sort of a committee member with us for the
That would be
Hessian,
nice.
the Hessian camp community to pull something together for next spring.
Yeah, I'd really like to work with somebody from Hessian camp, and then we could, get somebody who's at the other end, Pandora way.
Okay.
Or we can just use Shelley too. She's,
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, Shelley's
Yeah.
not here, so we can volunteer her.
yeah, we'll volunteer, but she said she would, want to be part of that anyway from her end.
I mean, Bill Sands used to be a great resource too, but he moved. He was in the Hessian camp area forever, and I know he's still actively involved with their community group, but he's no longer living in the community.
Oh, he doesn't live on Hill Road anymore?
No, I thought he did as of a couple months ago, and I reached out to him and he said, no, I'm still involved with the committee, but I sold my house. So,
Oh.
yeah, so no, he moved out of the area. I think he moved out of the city too. I want to say he's in Muhlenberg Township. But still has a soft spot in his heart for the city. So, all right. So Shelley's not with us for a member update. I know we're continuing to search for new members, and I know that Kathy and I have been members for a long time, and our terms are probably ending sooner rather than later. And I think it would be great if some younger blood stepped up and took our place. Not that we want to step away from the council's work altogether, but I think it would be nice after 10 plus years to maybe have more of an advisory role where we're not formal members. So curious to know where things stand there on a member update, but we'll follow up with Shelley next month.
Yeah, and I echo what David just said, and I think, I'd stay on a committee and do projects and things, be happy to be a resource, but really like to get more different people participating in helping their government do a good job sustainably for the future. So
Yeah.
is everybody thinking about anybody you might be willing to be on? I thought of a couple people that I need to follow up with, and if everybody reached out to one more person, it would help.
Well, I don't know what form it would take, but I feel like it almost needs to be a more proactive, I'm not even sure, not individuals, word of mouth, but something more directed and more precise, maybe through council, maybe some conversations with Bethany and other folks because this has been a topic of conversation for a year or two now, and we haven't really had a lot of success. But on the communications committee, I can tell you we've had a lot of conversations about it.
Yeah, we did ask council for help
And got
4 or 5 years ago.
We've been asking council for help for the last 10 years.
Yeah, we put it in our.
Every
Yeah,
time
we
we make
put
a
in-
report, we let them know that, we're down 1 or 2 members, and if there's anyone within their electoral districts that they're aware of who'd be willing to serve, we'd welcome the opportunity to speak with them about joining us as members of the EAC, but
Yeah, when we
Yeah,
did
but I think,
report, we always did that. So I mean, I don't know.
I think I mean, I don't know if there is a way out there that would bear fruit. But I don't know, maybe we have to.
Well, I guess I could suggest that we could put on our website that we have some vacancies and would welcome applications, send it to Shelley, at least put on our website that.
I'm wondering because obviously the EAC is not the only advisory council in the situation that I am actually out of town next week for a conference, but I'm gonna put in on my calendar when I get back that maybe Shelley, myself, and Christian can sit down and come up with a social media campaign that we could do kind of as a general, like, this is what it takes, this is your time commitment, these are the available openings, this is what we're looking for.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
And just really kind of push it as a, because we do want, obviously we want staff benefits when we have an experienced advisory council, but we also need to raise up experience as well.
Yep.
So
Need to
or like
develop
develop
Yep.
experience,
Yep.
develop that experience in people.
Experience and sort of.
Yeah,
thinking-
I
Yeah,
thinking in terms of
but to
leadership.
be mindful of where we came from, because, the EAC has made it a priority over the course of the last 10 years to make sure that its members are bringing with them to the table some experiential background, whether it be in, geology, engineering, sustainability. And that has really changed. I mean, for someone who's been a member since what, 09 or so, the discussions have changed. And, whereas early on, there was just a lot of talk and the EAC really never did anything, that has changed. And the perception in the community now is that, we take on projects, we get things done, whether it's new ordinances, but we want to make sure that that experience continues and that we are somewhat selective about who we're bringing to the table, recognizing that there are other issues out there. I mean, there are demographic issues, there are diversity issues that we need to address. But at the same token, we've come a long way in 10 years in terms of the expertise that our members bring to the table here, and we don't want to lose that.
right. No, I agree.
All right, so the next two items are on me, and unfortunately they haven't gotten done yet. I actually did reach out to Andy Fetterman earlier in the summer about the Act 2 database update, and at the time they did have an intern available, but I think they just got really swamped and busy over the summer, as did I, and I didn't follow up with Andy, but I know that this remains a high-profile item for Liberty Environmental. We actually just talked about it recently on an Act 2 project in the city where some groundwater modeling is now going to have to take place because we don't have the appropriate designation, non-use aquifer designation in place in Reading, like they do in Lancaster. And I reminded Andy when I talked to him about that a couple of weeks ago that, yeah, we really need to get working on this project. So hopefully by next summer that will happen. And the plastic bag ban update, that's on me. I mean, I have a copy of Philadelphia's ordinance here that I simply need to spend some time working on and circulate to everyone for comment. So that's all we have on old business for today. Anything else on old business that we need to discuss before we move on to the Schuylkill River contamination project listed under new business? Okay, who can report on the Schuylkill River contamination project?
Bill, is that you?
No, I was just waving a fly away.
Uh,
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this one either.
Bethany, do you know?
I think this came up when Reverend Evelyn came to visit when we were doing the outdoor meetings. There has been updated reports on the Schuylkill River and its recovery. I'm wondering if that's what we intended it to be, but I am not prepared to present on that today.
I think so. Sarah, do you know anything about it?
I mean, we recently did a study. We have water quality sensors on the main stem of the Schuylkill. They're provided by Stroud. And we have a story map that talks about the Schuylkill River as a whole, from Reading down to the tidal area in Philly. So I can provide you the story map. I just wonder what that means, contamination.
I think the concern was, David will remember this better because she's been concerned about it for years. Maybe it's the Superfund site
Mm,
that was remediated, and on the one edge of it is along the Schuylkill, and she's concerned that things are leaching.
mhm. I remember talking to somebody at like an Earth Day event about that. I don't know anything about that. We
Yeah.
really were just looking for E. coli
Right.
ultimately.
Yeah, so that's the old American Cheney cable site. And as part of that site, there was an old slag pile, a radioactive slag pile on
Right.
the property, which was thoroughly investigated as part of a federal cleanup and an Act 2 cleanup at the property. And it was determined that there's no risk of groundwater leaching through this area and impacting the Schuylkill. I mean, they did their 30-year modeling. And as part of the remediation efforts in that area, there was a cap that was placed over top the site with an obligation to maintain that cap. And I have not been involved in any of the maintenance work, so I don't know if that's happening or not. But you're right, Kathy, that's one of the concerns that Reverend Morrison has expressed over the years, that this
Right.
stuff is leaching not only into Schuylkill, but the neighboring community as well. And, we've got proof that that's not happening. I think she also made the comment at our meeting, it may have been our June meeting at Pandora, that the Schuylkill River itself, apart from this slag pile, that the Schuylkill River itself is contaminated, and we're not doing enough to address that issue. And I don't necessarily agree with that either. But we can follow up with Shelley for next month to find out just what was meant by this item and what, if anything,
I think that's
we're
it.
expected to do about it.
Yeah, I think that's it, David, that it's an echo of her continuing concern that the cap isn't being maintained, and radioactive and heavy metals are all leaching into the Schuylkill. I think she thought there was some monitoring that either was done or wasn't clear whether it should be done, and we were just going to look into getting some more information for the public about that, since there seems to be a conversation going on, certainly led by her at least.
And I am hearing, and I do hear it more from older members of the community who grew up with the reputation of the Schuylkill soup. Whether it's actually fishable, swimmable, drinkable.
Yeah.
And
So Sarah, your story board, does that have information about the water quality as well?
It focused on like turbidity, oxygen, conductivity, temperature, and then
Okay.
we did sampling for E. coli. But
Mhm.
there are still sensors, like there's one in Reading.
For what?
It was for all those things. So it
Okay.
sends like real-time data, but it doesn't have any information about.
yeah, we can't do
Heavy
heavy metal
metals,
testing that
yeah.
way.
No.
But this is, the sensors are in several of the tributaries to the Schuylkill, and then in the Schuylkill, the other mayfly sensors that Stroud has built. And they do a good job on turbidity, conductivity. So that's the really interesting thing, is we can use it to kind of check our salt.
And
with
then
it.
Stroud wanted to add a colorimeter. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but to test for like algae and whatnot down here in
Yeah.
Foxtown. So that's interesting, but yeah, it's not addressing what you guys are talking about.
Okay.
So this site, this is the one right by the Buttonwood Gateway, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So I was just down there last week and I don't know if any of you know, but there was definitely somebody cutting some brush and trees and stuff down over there. So I don't know if that could be part of the reason why it got on the agenda. Also, there's 4 concrete blocks that were placed that actually block the trail there at the Schuylkill River. I guess that's still technically part of the Schuylkill River Trail. Because our wastewater treatment plant actually called up to us to complain that they need to run down because there's a sanitary line that runs through there.
Interesting.
You said big blocks?
Yeah, like Jersey barriers,
Hmm,
4 of them.
that's interesting. All I know from the inside here is that RAC is doing their planning. And they're moving forward and they're doing what they want to do. And everybody's concerned about the trail, but we don't own the trail. And there's a lot of different ownerships of land down there, it seems, and everybody's kind of confused.
Well, one thing we did, the city actually moved the trail into the street.
Hmm,
So that's basically from the Buttonwood Street Bridge, but that it turns back at RAC right in their parking lot.
mhm.
It's our first dedicated separated bike lane.
Oh, that's cool.
But I think a lot of people still think it's a street, so they tend to drive over the signs constantly.
Well, you can go from Rack up to the Buttonwood Street Bridge and vice versa. Is that what you're talking about, the section from Rack to the Buttonwood Street Bridge?
From RAC to the Buttonwood Street Bridge, they've actually moved it. It's actually in the street now, and they redesigned the street. I don't know if you've been in that.
But that section's still open to traffic. It's not.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it is buffered.
I don't know what's going on where those Jersey barriers are, but that site that we've been talking about, I think that's the same site, is it has, as I recall, it's got some of the material is radiated. I mean, it's highly hazardous. I'm wondering if somebody, whoever has chain of custody or something, is blocking people from getting there because of some kind of liability thing. But it's been in planning versions for several years to try and run that, to connect River Road to the Schuylkill Avenue Bridge. I mean, all of that, and that's been the problem. I don't know what the current issues are, but no one could go anywhere with it just because it was. It's not just heavy metals. It's some kind of radiated something.
Yeah, well, that's the slag pile.
It's the slag pile, right? But it's like smack dab on the trail, or what would be the trail, right?
Right. Correct. And they decided, I mean, they did not excavate any of the slag pile. They decided, as part of the remediation and release of liability, that they would simply, create a cap over top of the slag pile, and there's an obligation that it be permanently maintained. I know, Kathy, that we looked at this several years ago in conjunction with the development in that area. I should follow up with Shelley again to see what documentation she still has that she can share with us. See, the problem with chain and cable, the remediation, was that when they got their initial release of liability for this site, that was around the time when the city would get copied on all of these requirements, and there was no filing system. So all this stuff simply got thrown away. Now, when projects occur through DEP and Act 2, where we get a release of liability and the city's copied, Shelley files all of this, so we have a database going forward. But we do not, for instance, have a list of any of the limitations or requirements that went along with maintaining that cap for chain and cable 20, 25 years ago. And it may maintain simply, taking a trip to Harrisburg to do a file review to, take a look at the file, see what's there, so we have it. But this is a recurring issue that comes up frequently. So let me start with Shelley to see what documentation she has where we can refamiliarize ourselves with this, find out what data gaps we do have, and then find out the best way for getting that information. And actually, as a result of COVID, recently, I've had a lot of success in simply contacting the file department folks at DEP, and they've actually pulled stuff for me where I didn't have to actually formally go in and schedule a file review. So there may be an easy way to get what we're looking for, but I want to find out from Shelley first what she has.
Yeah, and this relates to a topic that's no longer under our old business, but should be, which is our environmental justice projects. And one of them was and has been that we want to get a database going of the Act 2 restrictions so that we know what properties, because the way this came up most recently that we took an action on was part of the Buttonwood Gateway properties was being developed. And that's when you need access and need to know that the property had some contamination, had some remediation, and what the rules are and what standard was selected, because you can get a release, as David's explained to us before, you can get a release for use as a commercial industrial property, but you wouldn't be able to put a school or playground on it. So you need to know what restrictions there are. So like the case of over the slag pile, there's a cap and it needs to be maintained and it needs to stay intact, and then it's safe. But it's not safe if those things don't happen. And so we need to know where in the city there are restrictions and caps and things like that, so that we know whether to approve or disapprove a planned change in use. So that was one of the things we wanted to do. And that's why this keeps coming up, because nobody really knows. And we can't say absolutely to Reverend Morrison, this is not a problem. These things happen. There's no longer contamination that anybody could access, and no, it's not going into the school. Because it's really unclear where everything is and what restrictions were placed on those properties. They should have deed restrictions, but part of the other problem with the Act 2 program is that it leaves it to the applicant to put the restrictions on in their local, clerk's office, in the prothonotaria's office on the deed, and they often don't follow up and do that. So there's several reasons why there's lack of information.
We do have a new planner and we do have a new trades person, inspector. Would it be helpful to do a separate get to know you meeting and
Yes.
address this issue separately with them, and then see what their thoughts are and how they want to maybe set up that database and that information?
I think that would be great. What do you think, David?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Do we
So
have
we need David for sure, and I would volunteer to be on that in that group
Me too.
for that meeting.
Yeah, me as well.
David, do you have a preferred daytime kind of thing to meet up?
I can make any time work.
Bethany,
Mhm.
who is the new planner? What's the new planner's name?
The new planner's name is Brandy, and I'm forgetting her last name at the moment. I just met her last week I actually met both of them last week for the first time. She actually has a similar background to me. As in she had a midlife crisis and decided that municipal planning was the way she wanted to go. She comes to us from Oregon, the state, and her partner has family here in Berks County, and that's why they landed here in Berks. So she's beginning of career but seems very enthusiastic and is falling in love with the city. We're trying to get together where we can do my famous 25-cent tour of the city and the infrastructure and kind of orientate her to the city more. And then Chris Geltz is the new codes trades inspector person. I think
CBO.
Scott's met him.
I haven't met him. He's the CBO, Chief Building Official.
Yeah, chief building. Thank you.
Mm.
He comes to us via Harrisburg and Lancaster. And again, is falling in love with Reading, so that's a good thing. But I'll be happy to set up a meeting so that way we can discuss this as a potential issue, something to have on the radar and come up with a solution.
So now we've gone from 18 to 16 vacancies.
Something like that.
Yeah, Bethany, I would pull Shelley into that meeting
Yep.
as well.
Yeah.
All right, thank you to Public Works, by the way. The yard waste truck just stopped out front, picked up my bags for the week. Always appreciated. Okay, so under project updates, Kathy actually raised a very good point about environmental justice policy, because it was my understanding as well, Kathy, that that was going to remain on our project update list. And I see it's listed here as DEP's policy update for EJ.
Yeah, that was a very specific, that
Yeah.
was a very specific one,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we already provided that update. This was more, we want to make sure from meeting to meeting, just like DEP now actually has an EPA as well, environmental justice, folks who are looking at all of their programs through an EJ, set of
Lens,
eyeglasses.
yeah.
We want to be doing the same thing. And I actually mentioned this to Joe Vitillo at EPA when I talked to him about Bernhardt's a couple months ago. We talked about environmental justice, and although this is not in the city, it's owned by the city, and historically it was used by many people in the city. And it was my way of trying to convince him that, if Bernhardt's is borderline in terms of whether or not it qualifies for inclusion on the national priorities list, they need to be looking at environmental justice for Bernhardt. So
Yeah.
we need to be doing the same thing as well. So
And
Shelley,
we included that specifically in our report on Bernhardt,
right,
that environmental justice,
right.
just to remind everybody that we think we should be kicked to the top of the list with the new Superfund money and cleanup money, because they've made lots of commitments that EJ communities are finally going to get first call, not last call on funding and on, especially on technical resources. And that's the other issue. We're not getting the technical resource assistance that we need. And we need it more because we're an EJ community.
Yeah.
And, they need to put their money where their mouth is.
Yep.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, that's fine. So we'll just make sure.
I just
that-
wanted to say yes. And we've already taken an official position on that too. So I'm glad you're talking to people that might share it.
Yeah, so we'll make sure Shelley puts that at an appropriate place on the agenda going forward, and that be a recurring item from meeting to meeting, just so we see it every month and we know to.
Yeah, I think it should be an old business, sort of as a continuing thing, rather than as a project.
That makes sense. So the only other thing I see on our project updates that we haven't talked about that I know has consumed a lot of time over the course of the last couple of months is our communications committee. So Bill, I didn't know if you had an update that you wanted to provide today.
Well, and Kathy and Bethany can help me out here. I mean, there's been a lot of foundation laid in terms of communication with the engagement of Desi and David Nazario. They developed some online stuff and stuff for the website, stuff for the map, I think the Facebook presence, the MailChimp, is that it? MailChimp.
Yeah.
Uh,
MailChimp is like a newsletter. resource.
Right, we have an email address, and, a lot of that stuff that was maybe mentioned, has been mentioned for months is in place and ready to go. They had an evolving PowerPoint that has a lot of, I think, good, has organized the whole idea, the whole communications plan in a good way, including a lot of usable copy. So I think the start has been made. Oh, and then some specific outreach to some partnering organizations, the library and GoggleWorks identified as initial organizations. Some others talked about for the future, but those two specifically. And the one specific thing in place, I believe we mentioned before, is that the library has an ongoing, and I think it was a very good idea from David's viewpoint, rather than starting and inventing stuff from scratch, to see what some of these institutions are already doing and to piggyback on things that are in place. And the library has, just the Reading Public Library, at the main branch, they have an ongoing book club. I guess it was on hiatus for the summer. And so he had an idea of inserting a book dealing with sustainability into one of the months. And the one for October, and I believe this information went out to everybody, and everybody's invited to read it or implored to read it and to join in. The discussion will be on October 28th. But I'll forward the flyer to, I just got this the other day and I haven't done anything with it. I'll forward the flyer to Shelley and she'll send it out to everybody. Anyway, the book that we're going to discuss is The Intersectional Environmentalist. And the discussion will happen on the 28th, I'm sorry, the 27th at Mecca Caribbean and Soul Food, which is on Franklin Street in West Reading. But everybody reads the book before that and comes together for the book discussion. I'm going to go. I'm pretty sure Kathy's going to go. I think Desi will go. So that's happened. David has been able to identify 2 dates, and I don't have those yet. One later this year, and then one in the winter at GoggleWorks to show a film on this subject, whatever that subject might be. But dealing with sustainability, environmental justice, and activism and stuff. And so we're in the process of identifying films, but he's got the auditorium reserved for 2 specific dates, or is in conversation about that. And the other thing that happened at the GoggleWorks is we've been communicating with Tanya Lopez. Do I got the name right, Kathy?
Tiana.
Tanya's.
Yeah, it's confusing because Tanya Melendez is
Right.
leader at the 18th Ward and at the Oak Brook
Right.
Garden. So
Right.
It's
And so
confusing.
Tiana Lopez, and I know Kathy's talked to her, but to put ourselves in a position moving towards working in some kind of partnership with them on some volunteer stuff. So, it's a slow process of cultivation. Part of the process has been, part of the conversation repeatedly has been who we are and who the community is, and how we don't reflect the vast majority of the population, and how we need to, and it's the same thing having to do with membership. So David and their contract is pretty much run out, been exhausted. We did approve funds at the last meeting to continue this work, but for their own particular reasons, the 2 of them have chosen not to stay engaged. So that is something that we need to look at, is who, identify another person or 2, probably 1 person, to continue the maintain the online presence and to move the work forward, including with communication. I mean, Kathy and I are now starting to work on some wording that takes the 6 pillars and tries to put it into some format that is going to be usable on flyers and in communications and everywhere in terms of outreach to the community. Bethany has said on more than one occasion that it's been really helpful it has been really helpful to have the two of them involved in helping develop stuff. So, but they're not going to be available to, I think, I mean, they both have expressed interest to stay involved, but not to be engaged specifically on a, contracted to do specific work, but to participate, maybe as volunteers. So I don't know, Kathy, have I missed anything in terms of where we are? Where
No,
we're
I think
getting
that
involved?
those are the main things. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
And so, there's a lot of thought gone into how do we take the sustainable six and turn that into some communicable message. And I think a lot of good stuff is there. And, we'll be working on massaging that wording. Bethany, just so you know what's going on, Kathy and I are taking this a piece at a time. We've picked two of the six. We're working on some wording. We're exchanging it. We're going to comment, and then we'll get that to you, Desi,
Yeah.
David.
Yes.
Kathy did get the solid waste one to me.
Oh,
I've had a chance to breeze through it. I haven't had a chance to go through it, but so far so good. Keep it up.
well, why don't I?
So
send
just so everybody knows, the idea is we
Here, do you want me to share it? I actually have it.
no,
handy.
no, not yet. So I have some,
No, I mean, we can just share the concept.
oh,
'Cause
yeah,
I like how you have it laid out.
yeah, sure. So the
This
idea
is the rough
is
draft.
you pick an issue that people probably need to be educated about and understand more about. And so you identify the issue and then you explain why they should care. And then you ask them to do something about it. So then you have a call to action. And what we've done is said what they can do about it and also include what the city's doing about it. So that we can see that we're actually, that some things are being done and then there are things that they can do as well. And Bill came up with this sort of basic outline. So we have education, awareness, and call to action, and things you can do yourself and things you can do with others. And that there's too much here. One, pare it down so there's a simple question, why you should care, and then some things to do about it, and then have several of them for each of the pillars. So this one was for waste. Bill's worked on one for energy, for clean energy. We need water, the 6 pillars anyway.
Yeah.
I'm working on the water one too now.
Oh, or you're jumping ahead.
Well, I kept thinking of water things.
Yeah,
I was trying to write the waste.
get it out
I
there.
thought I better just do the water while I'm still able to think about it.
Well, let's remember, Kathy, water and waste in this city is like this. It's two sides of the same coin. So,
Yep.
I say everything is.
well, this is true, but
But so let me sort of add 3 things. First of all, the idea of the education, awareness, and action really came from Desi and David. That sort of way of
Mhm.
thinking about it. And then it occurred to me that the action sort of can have a further breakdown is like what you can do as an individual, what you can do with other folks, and what the city is doing, which I think is important to let people know that it's sort of partnership. And that it's and this is we are taking the sustainable 6 that Bethany and I guess Nicole kind of worked up, but sort of based on the mayor's pillars idea, right? I mean, it kind of was an expansion of that. So we've been using that as the basis, and that's going to be centered around that. And as Kathy said, if you saw what Bethany just posted, there's like tremendous amount of wording there, not to go on a flyer, but I think we
just set
both
up the web pages like this.
What's that?
Well, we can set up the web pages like this.
Right, and so for those who are interested, the information's there to go to the sort of expanded version. We can use it as something to refer to pull from. So it's kind of like a reference manual in a sense of information in all those categories that we can pull wording from. But as I started doing it, I thought this is way too much wording for doing outreach. But I think it'll be a good basis for both to go into the plan and have as useful reference for all of us to use. So I don't think it's wasted time, but we have to distill that into something really, usable, where Stephanie, David, especially, I think David Mazzario, who's communicators, will come in. So anyway, it's a long report, but
Yeah,
that's.
I sent mine to Bethany because I had a couple questions
I
about
have to plug in some stuff for you.
some things I was hoping she could plug in or get me, sort of like amounts of stuff that the city collects and how much it costs them to do that.
Bethany, one of the things when I looked at Kathy's, I thought, and it occurred to me, but I didn't do it, was to try and include some facts in the climate one too, like, I don't know, specifics. Maybe I'll send it, I'm gonna take another look at it and see where it could be embellished with some of that. And then I'll copy you also. Maybe you could take a look at that and see if you have, at your fingertips, some stuff we can throw in about.
So our hope would be we'd end up with 6 pages of sort of talking points.
Yeah.
Organized that way of what's the issue, why do you care, what can you do, what can you do with others, what's the city doing?
Right.
So we have one, at least one, get one done for each pillar, a page that has those things on it, and then we can pull from it, as Bill said, that anybody going to any meeting or planning to be, with people, will have something they could refer to and explain. Because and I guess the thing we didn't say is, so the 6 pillars are the foundational organization of the climate action plan. And we're trying to have materials ready to make sure we get real community dialogue and conversations going on the climate action plan, so that it's meaningful and people are engaged in it, and they know about it, and they care about it, and they know what they can do to help. And so-
Right, and the challenge remains, and it's kind of been there from the beginning, and one of the reasons we engaged David and Desi is how do you take what maybe tends towards wonkiness a little bit, because we're so involved with this, take it and put it in a form that people from different parts of the community, the different demographics, can connect with. And so that was an important part of our charge. How do we bring this down to how it affects you in Reading in terms of people can connect with? So that's where I think we can use everybody's help as this moves along. So, I mean, to summarize the report, I'd say we are, we're midstream, so to speak, and just continuing to build. And a separate discussion we'll have in the committee is figuring out how we identify another person or persons that can carry this forward. And if anybody knows of someone they can recommend. And I think it's particularly important that it be a person who understands the community that we live in. I mean, I think we've got the old white folks covered, or I do. I can talk to those people.
Yes.
But
We've got old white women and white men, so.
yes, exactly. We could talk to David, and we could talk, we could talk to all those people in Reading. We need people that can put it in terms that eyes don't glaze over.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough of that, I guess. I don't know if anybody have any questions.
All right.
Okay, we've got 10 minutes before our hard stop. So is there anything else that needs to be covered?
I sort of picked out everything under the project updates that I thought we needed to know about, and nobody else is indicating anything else. So it looks like we may be on to next steps, which is simply, reminding folks that our next meeting is October the 25th, which will be a virtual meeting by way of Zoom. Anything else for the good of the order today that we did not cover?
Bethany, while we're on the screen together, you sent something about the med ed folks for a program. Can we talk? Are you available tomorrow to chat?
Let me get back to, tomorrow's a little wonky for me.
Thursday?
I
Today,
could
maybe?
definitely do it on Thursday or,
Okay.
yeah. Maybe Thursday around 10.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I have something at 11. Okay,
Okay,
I'll give you a call.
alrighty.
Is there any further date on climate action plan drafting or circulation or?
I did just do a workshop with Voice Up Berks, with their youth advisory board. I will be happy to share that presentation with you all. I found some really cool maps as a
good.
way to show how how the climate has already changed and then what we're facing in their
Mhm.
lifetime. It did go over, I'm in the process, I did ask them a few questions. Obviously, when dealing with high schoolers, I gave a couple choices of like, where do you want us to prioritize our efforts? And then anything else you want me to know or try or things. I'm still in the process of analyzing their answers, although some shocking things did come out of it. So there's about 36 participants, and a good third of them want us to enforce illegal dumping and other environmental laws.
Huh.
Just simply enforce them, please.
Huh.
That was a kind of an overall discussion on young people are really sick and tired of adults screwing up their areas. Obviously keep, go on the, keep going with the energy transitions, focus, kind of the typical things that that is just out in the zeitgeist. But I thought it was really interesting. And this is from kids all over the county, not just in the city. Kids in Boyertown and kids in Kutztown are also complaining about littering and other environmental degradations happening. So the kids are all right. They're just, and this is a group that tends to work a lot with city service projects specifically, but also with the county areas. So we'll see what they decide that they want to do, but I thought that was really interesting that simply just enforcing
Yeah, that is interesting.
issues. One girl complained, she's from Boyertown, and they're having a similar electronics and household hazardous waste dumping issue near where she lives and near one of her parks. It's not just the city that has the problem. So
Good to know.
yeah, so and we have Sarah has assisted with the kind of making the connection, but the city has been working with the Schuylkill River Greenways with their illegal dumping app, where the city is supporting their app. But people, if they're out on the trail or in other natural places, you can drop a pin if you find an illegal dump, and then it will report out, and anything that's city wide will be coming directly to our team so we can address it right away. So we're excited to do that. Just another tool to put in the toolbox. We'll be only when it's ready to go, we'll be doing PR around it.
Okay. Awesome.
It was something that the people who do the cleanups wanted, and then Sarah's organization, or the Schuylkill River Greenways. I always want to say Sarah, but it wasn't entirely Sarah. also came up with it, and it was like, well, why reinvent the wheel twice? Let's support them, and they'll just get us the information. So, okay, I think we're at time, and I think we covered everything we wanted to cover this time. I do want to remind people, October 25th is the active transportation plan community outreach meeting. It is at the Central Middle School. There are sessions from 4 to 6 and then 7 to 9, and they're the same sessions. So I'm hoping that people can come out, bring a friend of me, bring a neighbor.
That'll be easy to remember because it's the same day as our next meeting.
Yes.
It's just a meeting.
Yeah, so I will be pushing out social media on that by the end of the week to help advertise it. We are gearing it to be multimodal with the idea of increasing our walkability, our bikeability, and safety for everyone on our roads.
Okay,
This would be, it'd be really interesting to think about how to get the publicity of that out to people who might not normally see it, but.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have
So when I was at the Cultural Diversity Festival on Saturday, and I passed out 100 flyers. So,
Oh, good, great.
so all kinds of people. And they're like, oh, I don't live in the city. I was like, that's okay. You're playing here today. Come and talk about it with us.
So, David, before you wrap, just one other thing, because people may have missed it. We did, I'm not sure who, I guess we bought it. The city now has 3 copies, I think, of the Intersectional Environmentalist available. And this is for David and Sarah. Kathy bought, Scott, if he wants to do it, Kathy and I have already bought copies. So those are available for you guys or anyone else. It's not a long book. But that's, that's the book for the book discussion, and whether you attend or not, you may want to read it just as an interest. But
okay.
I guess it's on Shelley's shelf. I'm not sure where it is actually. Your shelf. Bethany?
All right.
I'm assuming it is. I actually we read it but in my grad school program. So it's a pretty easy read. It's not a heavy duty academic book, and it's broken out into sections with lots of boxes and things. So, and it's organized pretty well where you can even just do a chapter and then skip to another one. It doesn't have to necessarily be read in order.
Sarah put a question. It's 6 p.m. It's at 6. Yeah, that'd be great, Sarah. If you thinking of going, that'd be great. I think we have to show that we're in this.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta leave. So if there's nothing else, we stand adjourned.
Okay. Thanks,
Good.
guys.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
So Bethany, I'll give you a call on Thursday. I'd like to try and set it up for the so we can do it for the program that's on the second. It's like 2 weeks from today is the program.
Okay.
So I don't know if you need to reach out.
I
to
think
someone.
yeah, I'll have to reach out to them, but I think we can. Wait, October 2nd.
No. The date the program is the second Tuesday.
Oh, it's the 2nd. Okay. I was like, wait a minute.
So that is the 11th. It's the 11th.
The 11th. Okay.
So I guess everybody else went. Yeah, I mean, I think so. What's just real quick? Yeah, just like 1 minute.
Yeah.
But we can talk on Thursday about the content. So BCTV is just now is in the process of switching over to no live programming. Everything is going to be recorded, but October is the last month that there will be live programming.
Okay.
So we can, I think you and I can talk on Thursday whether, I mean, it sounds like this person who from MedEd, it's not, what's her name, Jessica, it's somebody else, right? It wouldn't be her.
Yeah, it's not Jen Rivera. It's the actual program person
Okay.
from MedEd. So
So, yeah, But are you gonna be, it'd be the three of us having a discussion, so you'd be part of it also? Or
I could be. I will not be available to record until Tuesday, the 11th.
Right.
So if I can't do it, that's perfectly fine. as well.
Okay. So you wouldn't be available the Monday before that either, is what you're saying?
No, I'm actually taking the climate court along with gardens.
Oh, good.
I
All
know,
right.
I have the most terrible job ever.
That's good. The climate what? It's the climate what?
I'm taking the climate core along
Oh,
with gardens.
wow.
As a partial, you guys have been doing awesome, and here's something really cool in our neck of the woods. Go play tourist. But they're also getting a tour, like a behind the scenes tour with other people in environmental stewardship careers.
What do you do? Is that what you're doing all next week, or is that just the following Monday?
No, that's just Monday. I'll be up in Harrisburg at the Pennsylvania Environmental Professionals Conference.
Oh, okay.
So it's up in State College this year.
Oh.
And
Well,
taking a tour of State College's composting facility
Yeah, I
and
would
some other
expect
things.
I would expect that they would have some forward-looking stuff. Well,
Yeah. Well, it's nice when you have when you have an R1 in your neighborhood, certain things get done.
an R1.
Research Institute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to, between now and Thursday, if you have a minute, if you want to communicate with Jen and say the simplest thing is just to schedule it for 10:30 on the day of the program. What did I just say was the 11th? That's the simplest, and then we can decide whether you and I would be in the studio and this person would be remote, or whether we do a three-way Zoom, which we can do.
Okay.
But it's sort of like, in some ways, I'd like to go into the studio since this will be the last live sort of program. But if you tell me if you don't want to do it this way, but since you've mentioned to Jen about doing the program.
Yeah,
So
they're on board.
All right, so you could tell her that that's the upset time, and any time before that, we can record it, whether it's earlier that morning, or even, I can't do it Friday. I mean, we'd have to do it this Thursday since you're going to be gone next week, if you're part of it. In some ways, I thought one of the things that interests me is I think this for me would be educational, probably for you, because these are the kind of things we're going to try and offer in the climate action. Right?
Yeah.
So it would be a process of getting up to speed on stuff. So if you have time between now and when we talk on Thursday to see if we can at least establish a time, and then you and I could talk about what we would like to cover. But if not, we do that after the fact. I'm hoping we're far enough out, 2 weeks ahead, that we can secure a time where, and then maybe get a name of a person in the communication, and I can start talking to them.
Yeah, I'm actually looking for.
If I don't know how you're communicating with Jen, if it's email, you could just copy
It's
me.
email. Yeah, I'm looking for the email.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let me find that, and because of course I've been talking to Jen about 4 different projects right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that would be great. I think it would be something useful that we could put out, even that's something we could put out to people and publicize it on the whole interview on the website. So
Yeah.
How are things going?
As soon as I'm done with these energy contracts, I'll be happier. Oh, you know what? Let me stop the recording.